and settled for just okay, but trusted that there maybe was something more. So with that in mind, I'm just going to set the stage with a little clip courtesy of AT&T.
Francis. Oh yeah, he's okay.
Just okay.
Guess who just got reinstated?
No, not officially. Nervous? Yeah. Me too. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out.
I see it. Just okay is not okay, especially when it comes to
Okay, you can turn it off.
AT&T is very
We don't need the AT&T advertisers. So, you know, the good surgeon, he's okay. He's just doing brain surgery. That's all you need is an okay surgeon.
Oh yeah, he's okay.
Oh, there.
All you need is a nutcracker and a spoon.
A nutcracker and a spoon. Okay. So, if you were thinking about that, if you're going to go in for surgery, would you be satisfied with a surgeon who was just okay? So why do we sometimes settle for, you know what, our church is okay. I mean, the preacher is sort of boring, but it's okay. And why do we not think that maybe God might have something better for us than okay? Jesus, when he came to do his ministry, did not come to just come and pat people on the back and say, you know what, the way things are going in your life, it's okay. Just keep on doing it. We'll make it the way that it's going. Jesus actually came to stir things up. He came to invite people to see that there's something more than just sort of trying to follow the rules and try to stay out of trouble. He came to invite people into something that was more than just okay, more than just going through the motions of faith. And as he shared this vision of the kingdom of God, and as he made clear what it looked like, it put people in a situation where they really needed to start making choices. They needed to start making decisions. If that is really what the kingdom of God is, either I need to trust and go where Jesus is going and following him, or I won't trust him and I will go away. But he didn't leave things in a situation where people would just sort of keep on moving forward without having that challenge of, do I really trust him or do I not trust him? So if you think about groups that you've been in your life, maybe you've joined a group and at first you really weren't sure about the group, and as time went on you sort of observed their values, you've observed what they stood for, and I've been in both of these kinds of groups. That after a while, in some cases, you start looking, you see these people do not have the same values that I do at all. These people don't have integrity. And once you know the truth about the group, then you come to that place where you need to make a decision and say, no, that's not where I want to be. Or sometimes you join a group and you're not too sure about them, but as you start spending time with them, and you see, you know what, these people have integrity, these people have love, these people have the same values I do. And you go from just sort of being a general member of the group to someone who says, I've decided I'm going to go and be more engaged because I know the truth about what this group stands for. That Jesus is coming to show us the truth of what the kingdom of God is like so that we can make that decision. Either, you know what, this isn't what I'm interested in, or if that's the truth, then I'm willing to go all the way. I'm willing to follow. And it's interesting that when you look at Jesus' ministry, he created a lot of division. That he created opportunities for people to follow and people to not follow. And it was interesting when you start seeing who decided to follow and who decided not to follow. There's one place where Jesus will say to the church leaders, the Pharisees, the prostitutes and the tax collectors, they're going into the kingdom of heaven ahead of you. That the ones who heard the message that Jesus shared and they were willing to follow might have been the ones that you wouldn't have expected to follow. And the ones that heard the message of the kingdom that you would have expected, well, these are church leaders, so they should buy into it right away, they were the ones that decided not to follow. But Jesus didn't just come to bring peace, to make everybody feel okay. He came to bring an opportunity, a decision point, where people needed to say, either I'm going to follow or I'm not. So with that in mind, going to the reading from Jeremiah. God is speaking through Jeremiah about the status of prophecy in the church of Jeremiah's day. And in the church of Jeremiah's day, there was a lot of stuff going on that said it wasn't okay. But what do you think the prophets who wanted to have everybody like them, what do you think they went around saying to people? You know what? Everything is okay. So you're doing fine. Just keep on paying me my money as your prophet, and I will keep on telling you the words that you want to hear to make you feel okay. And what does God say through Jeremiah? I didn't send those prophets. Their message is like chaff that's going to blow away in the wind. It's not going to benefit you at all. It's actually what God says through Jeremiah is the way that those prophets are prophesying, that they're actually causing you to forget about me, because they're lulling you to sleep thinking you're fine on your own. But that's not the way my word works. Through Jeremiah, God says, my word is not like chaff that blows away in the wind. My word is like a fire. It's like a hammer that breaks stones to pieces. It's something that doesn't lull you to sleep, but it's something that wakes you up. So with that in mind, this fall, I've been thinking about where we should be going as a congregation. That sometimes I think we get into a place where our expectations are too low. Where we think, well, it's just okay to be okay. And what I want to do is invite us to look at our message from Hebrews. In Hebrews it says, there's this cloud of witnesses that shows us what it looks like to experience a call from God and then follow. And when I was younger, I always thought, well, those are the exceptions. I'm going to be someone who's just going to live an okay Christian life because I don't have the faith of those people. But what if that cloud of witnesses was given to us not to set them aside as special super Christians while we are satisfied with okay, but what if that cloud of witnesses is actually to inspire us to run with perseverance the race that's set before us, so that we get to the place where if what Jesus says is really true, I'm not going to be satisfied with staying home safe. But I want to learn from that cloud of witnesses how to take some risks. That if what Jesus says is true, I want to learn how to be willing to get up and move if that's what God says, like Abram and Sarah. I want to be willing to march around a city and blow trumpets, even with everybody laughing at me, if that's what God says. I want to be someone who is able to shut the mouth of lions and walk through the fire. I want to be someone who, like Gideon, who feels like I'm the weakest and the most unworthy, but God says, you're my victor, you're my champion. And he learns how to become who God sees him to be. That cloud of witnesses that shows us how to live not that extraordinary life of just a few, but really what the normal Christian life should be. So what I want to be doing this fall is taking time to go through what it looks like to be moved forward to something more than just being satisfied with okay. And at age 53, I really could go two different directions. It would be a really good age for me to just say, you know what, I've got about 12 years of ministry left. I could just sort of say, you know what, I'm going to say whatever people want me to say so that I keep people happy, I get my paycheck, and that's all that I need to do. Make sure I don't stir up anything. It's really tempting, and I've seen lots of pastors do that. But I don't feel like that's what my call is, and the readings this week was a reminder that I have a baptism with which to be baptized. I have a message that God's given me to share. And that message is not to be like those prophets that say, you know what, everything's okay. Let me tell it, what do you want me to say? I'll say it for you. But rather to invite you to hear that there's a kingdom of God there that's inviting you to not be satisfied with okay, but to take some risks, to hear where God is leading you. As I think about if my kids ever give me grandkids, be thinking, if my grandkids ask me, so what was your ministry like? I don't want to talk to them and say, you know, it was okay. People sort of liked it, and that was okay. I got a paycheck, and that was okay. I want to be able to say, you know what? There were people who learned how to hear God's voice. There were people who went off to be missionaries because they heard God's voice. There were people who decided to take risks and do things because they heard God's voice. If they're younger pastors, when I'm retired and asked, so what was your ministry about? I don't want to tell them, oh, it was okay. the decline of membership in my congregation was slower than the decline in membership of some other congregations. I want to be able to say, people started hearing God's voice. There was a different understanding of the normal Christian life. People weren't satisfied with okay, because they heard the message of the kingdom and they took risks. So maybe some would say, you know what, just give me that church, that okay church, that church that makes me feel happy and comfortable. But that's not what my calling is. My calling is to help us to realize that we're called to something more. That at the end of that list of those heroes of the faith, those that lived their life not based on what they could see, but they lived their life based on what they saw as God calling them into. Many of them never saw the fulfillment of what they were living for, but yet they lived their life based on trusting God for more rather than being satisfied with something less. At the end of that list it says, therefore let us, because we're surrounded by this cloud of witnesses, run with perseverance the race that's set before us. And then it goes on to say, because we are following the pioneer and perfecter of our faith, Jesus, who does the same thing. What did Jesus do? Philippians, it says that he who was in the form of God didn't count equality with God as something to be grasped, but he emptied himself and became our servant. And I was thinking about this reading, basically for me, that's Jesus saying, having everything of heaven for myself is just okay. But emptying myself so that others can be invited into the things of heaven is what I'm really here for. And I think that's the baptism that Jesus comes to be baptized with, to die for us. I mean, it's sort of weird to say, having everything of heaven is okay. But what Jesus is saying, he says, for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross, despising its shame. What was the joy that was set before Jesus? The joy that was set before him was that I don't just have heaven for myself, but I'm bringing in a whole bunch of brothers and sisters. I'm bringing in a whole bunch of other people into the kingdom of God. And for him, that was joyful because he was entering into his purposes. And with that in mind, I want to invite you to be thinking, Jesus was free to do whatever he wanted to do, right? But he intentionally chose to use his freedom for the sake of being a blessing to us. There's a little clip that I've never seen this movie, but I heard it referred to in sermons lots of times. And so I just want to play a little clip. It's about William Wallace. And an invitation, I just want to have you watch this clip and then invite you to think something about what God might be calling you to do. Go ahead, Jordan. Okay, you can stop it there. The rest is just a bunch of cheering. So,
Yeah, it's great.
invitation of, just like you don't want an okay surgeon because your physical health is too important for that. Do you want just an okay spiritual life? If it's just about you, I'm going to run, I'm going to go home, and I'm going to be safe and feel okay, then maybe that's okay. But we are given freedom by Christ not just to go home and play it safe and be okay, We're given freedom by Christ for the sake of being a blessing to other people. And maybe we're okay going home and just sort of playing it safe if it's just about us. But when we understand our calling, that the reason that we're called to be people of faith who are willing to take risks is because there are other people who we're meant to be a blessing to. That for the joy that's set before us, we're willing to let go of what's okay and what's safe. And the joy that's set before us is making a difference in some child's life. That we're making a difference in Jordan's life, making a difference in our community. That my question for you as we finish today is the same that Mel Gibson, William Wallace asks, is you can go home and be safe and live for a while. Or lying in your deathbed, when you look back and you think, you know what, God invited me to take some risks. Lying in your deathbed, would you trade every day from that time that you said no up until that day to have one more chance to say yes? One more chance to say that if what Jesus is proclaiming is true, I don't want to walk home and stay safe. But if what he's saying is true, I want to lean into it. I want to take risks. I want to follow. And that's what our series through the fall is going to be about, is joining that cloud of witnesses that when they saw what was set before them, instead of going home and playing it safe, they took the risk of following. And they took the risk of seeing God work through them in ways that would transform the world. So that's your invitation. Think about the message of the kingdom. Think about what Jesus has to say. He didn't come to just pat you on the back and say it's okay, but he came to say there's something more. Take up your cross and follow me.